Something I suck at. Oh! Oh! Low! Nice. That is so not nice. Did it feel good kicking your friend, Brandon? No, I'm not. I'm sitting. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. I am on a high from beating Wild Arms 2, so I must not suck at video games that much. Which, by the way, I haven't told you how I beat Wild Arms 2. So there were rooms off to the sides of the save point. So before I started doing anything, I went and I checked out what was in each hallway. And there were a few items, a couple pieces of armor, and one accessory. Brandon, this accessory was called the Libra Stone, or the Libra something or another. And it nullifies all status effects. No, it's something you get before the battle. But here's the thing. So on your battle menu, there is an equip option. So I literally would get the boss down to one more attack, and then and yes. So I switched it to each. I switched it through the entire first 3 fights, and then I took it to Lilko with actually in the last round, and then I beat the final bosses. It's a really, really cheap way to beat that particular set of bosses, but I did it, and I beat the game. And the ending was longer than Mass Effect 3's. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I watched the whole thing. It was good. I mean, it was not the best written because it still had Wild Arms 2 translation. But I had a good time playing it, and it was really funny. Even Amanda's like, yeah, that's a better ending than Mass Effect 3. Because I said the same thing to her. No, it doesn't. Alright, so let's, yeah, I'm sure you see what I'm playing by now, because you're probably my one person watching. Yes, I am. God help me. The first part of my picking this game back up is practicing the stupid timed attacks for a little bit. So let's record a podcast, because that is what we do when we do this thing. We record the podcast. All right. Am I kicking it off, or are you? I'll do it. I know you don't like doing it as much as I do, right? Okay, well I'll do it. I like doing it, sort of. Alright. Is the red light on? Alright. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Z Trigger Podcast. My name is William Hill. And we are doing the video game discussion for this evening. And man, what an infuriating week it has been. Brandon, how you doing? Oh, are you referring to the plague that you were enduring while we were doing our Wild Arms streaming the past 2 days? I can't imagine what you're talking about. Yes. Go. I love how this is just my fault. Not that you weren't you weren't bringing up things like how Poco will never die and so on. Yes. Alright, well, what kind of games have you been playing this week, Brandon? Yeah, that's how Wild Arms 2 started too, and that was they're not short, they're not like painfully long or anything, but they are not short. Then you have to then you have to start the game. No. Is it still like really puzzle heavy, the first one? I know it's still got tools, so I don't know if it's still as puzzle focused. You okay, Guy Montag? All right, I see. That's how you treat your books. Did I just get too literary? You need to read. You need to read Fahrenheit 451 so you understand my stupid literature joke that I just made. I'm still garbage at timing attacks in literature. Nice. Nice. How long is Wild Arms 1 based on howlongtobeat.com? Yeah. Because the second one was about 44 hours after I, wrapped everything up. Okay, so it's about the same length. Very nice. Obviously, I've been playing Wild Arms 2. Because you watched me play... You literally watched me play 2/3 of Disc 2. I put a lot of time into that because I still had the same save file that I started, 15 years ago or whatever, whenever I first got my PlayStation, and that was. Hold on, I'm trying to remember how my healing items work. Oh my. Well, I have to see which one is a lower one, because I have 12 of this one that heals half of the HP for everybody in the party, and I'm just trying to see if that's a rare item or not, because it's literally been 12 years since I played Legend of Dragoon. I've tried it a couple times on and off, and the same problem I'm probably gonna have now was an issue where I'm not good at doing the button presses. And in this game, you have to. But anyway, Wild Arms... The thing that held me off with Wild Arms 2, because it's important to establish that the reason why I never finished this game is because I felt like I couldn't get over a hurdle with it. And that hurdle was the... Sorry, I had to type some button presses. I couldn't get over the fact that you got so few experience points for most of the things you did in the game. And eventually, though, I finally I got past that aspect of it by finding somewhere where I could get tons of experience points for really easy fights. And sadly enough, I did not realize just how easy it was going to be for me to get to something like that, because it was literally the next dungeon in the game, where I could literally stomp every single monster in the dungeon pretty easily, and I got about 1,200 experience points apiece. And yeah, I grinded a couple levels out and got back into the pulse of how the combat worked in the game, and now I've beaten it. It took me about a week, which is embarrassing that I gave up, that I kind of like stopped playing for so long, and literally knocked it out 8 days later. And I mean, I'm glad, obviously, that I put in the effort. And that's one more of my PS1 RPGs that I have finished now, and I'd really like to finish Legend of Dragoon. Legend of Dragoon, I have 3 dungeons left. The final boss of the Ball City of Zenibatos or whatever. This game gets really just completely bonkers, by the way, in its 4th disc. Oh yeah, I wouldn't take the enjoyment of this game away from anybody. Totally not a thing that I liked as much as everybody else. Partially because of the stupid friggin' button pressing. That's not fun to me. I'm not saying that it's too hard. It's just not something I'm good at as a gamer. It's a skill that I don't have. I can't get better at it, and that's really lame. I'm trying, though. That's what I'm doing right now, is I'm trying to do better with this particular part of Legend of Dragoon's game design so that I can finish it, because I want to finish more of my PS1 RPGs. If I can beat this one, if I can beat this game, there's no reason I can't beat not Panzer Dragoon Saga. I wish I had Panzer Dragoon Saga. Parasite Eve. Because it's those 3 that I have left before I've done all of the RPGs I bought for the PS1 in high school. And that'll be it. All 2 to go. 2 to go. And if I can beat this by a few days from now, I will try and beat Parasite Eve before Mario Odyssey comes out next week. Which, hey, spoiler alert, we're gonna get ad checked on our next podcast recording for the simple fact that I'm gonna be playing Mario Odyssey on our recording next Friday. No, they just flag it to make money so that they make money off of it instead of us. By the way, Namco, at least based on trying to stream any of their games, it's what they do. Yeah, they just copyright. Yeah, they ID'd it. Oh yeah, it was Disney over the Star Wars Episode 3 video. And the only reason they did that is because the game literally plays the movie as the cutscenes. Oh man. By the way, I'm getting a nice refresher on how terrible the experience points curve is in this game. You know what I can tell you about this game, Brandon? That I was always terrible at it. And my... Yes, and then you have to really be good at the crabby button pressing. I'm way too low level to be the last boss of this game, because I have Dart at level 34, and then Rose at level 31, and then the next highest character is 28. So it's bad. Yes, it is. I think the cap is 50. You'd have to double check that, but I think the cap is 50. Which is bad, because I'll never get there, because the experience points curve is terrible. And I'm fighting a giant dragonfly. It's time to do some pest control. Yes. I remember it was alright. Has Wild Arms 1 got as crap of a translation as 2? They're like, man, these role-playing games sure sell well on this system. Hey, we got this one. Somebody dumped the text into Google Translate. Yeah. Because otherwise, it's a pretty fun game. Nothing amazing, but it's good. I had a good time with it. Available at every corner drugstore. Yeah, that's the thing that really just infuriated me about Wild Arms 2 was the complete lack of healing items, especially whenever I tried to beat the final boss the first time, or the final round of boss fights, because quite simply you couldn't carry enough healing items to really make it not stressful. But then I found a way around it. The final boss, so the final four bosses, or the 4-part thing before the final bosses starts, is you have to fight with I'm trying to look for the words here. You have to fight these 4 creatures individually, like one party member going at a time, you know? And not everybody has healing magic. You have one healer in the entire game, except for Marvel, and I never went and got her because I didn't use anybody except for my 3 main characters. And the game's like, hey, guess what? You're gonna use everybody. And yeah, I just hit the completely wrong button for that timed attack. Nope, not at all. I mean, she's in the game otherwise, but she's not important. So it throws me into these this long string of fights where you're having to deal damage with characters that I didn't really know how to use because I didn't use them, and then it would cast like confusion of all things. So it pretty much just stops you from being able to fight and kills you during the interim. So so there's an item you get in the game though that that prevents all status abnormalities. You get it right before this string of bosses, and you have an equip function on the battle menu. So I just took it off of each character at the end of their battle and put it on the next person, and it got me right through, no trouble. Stomped all the bosses after that. But here's the thing. You know how I was saying yesterday when we were doing the last few bosses, or the last 2 days when we were doing all the boss fight? They were all pretty easy. The last boss finally made up for that by having 150,000 HP. Wow, I just did 4 hits in a row on Legend of Dragoon. That's better than the last time I tried to play. And then I just botched a darts attack. Trying to get better at this. Because, you know, I want to beat more mobile PS1 games, and I'm gonna... Maybe after I've beaten Mario Odyssey, because I know Mario Odyssey is going to own my time for a while, as big as it's going to be. I really want to start Star Ocean till the end of time. So, I may be streaming that soon. Hopefully you'll join me and we'll make fun of it and stuff, like we did Wild Arms. What do you say, Brandon? Maybe that week that you're here for the Dream Theater show, that'll be a part of our non-concert entertainment. All right, well, let's move into some stuff. You want to start with positive stuff, or you want to start with infuriating negative stuff? I think the news about Siberia on the Switch is pretty positive. Yeah, it's like all Nintendo stuff except for that thing. $2 million units, or no, they've increased production to 2 million units a month, and Nintendo had 2/3 of all hardware sold in the month of September. Right. Yeah, and that's I've actually been seeing them now in stores, and so it's impressive. You know, it didn't take that long. You know, relatively speaking, it took them about what, 7 months to have them consistently in stores. But I imagine I bet going into November they're going to get scarce again because of the holidays. Scalpers are probably going to start picking them up again because of that reason. Yeah. Oh, geez, man! You just reminded me of when I got my N64 for my birthday. Cause my mom had she'd ordered it from JCPenney and it hadn't come in yet. It was still a couple days from getting there on my birthday. So they gave me a card, like a birthday card, and on the inside it says, "Your N64 will be here in 3 days." And sure enough, it went to the gift store because my mom was still working at the gift store at that time, and that she brought it home during, like, she took a lunch break to bring it to the house, and it was so funny. It got there and it came with RCA cables. I'd never used RCA cables for my consoles in my entire life at that point. I only had used coaxial adapters, so it took me like 40 minutes of really frustrated, like, oh my god, I have my N64 and I don't know what to do with it, before I finally realized, hey, wait a minute, there's these plugs on the back of my VCR. So, no, man, that was back in the day, before that was common. They'd had that TV for a long time by that point. They got that TV in like 92, 93. Oh crap, I just hit the wrong thing. Well, I mean, my parents had that TV until the coaxial cable fell out of the back of it, and even then, we rigged up the VCR to channel our cable to our TV, and they didn't buy another TV for a little bit long after that. But yeah, we let it roll on in. Yeah, and I mean, I was the one who figured out how to keep them from spending the money, man. I was. I was their miniature cable repairman in a way. That's how I know. That's how I know how to hook up a dozen game consoles to one modern television. So yeah, that was how I got my N64. So that's not too unusual. I mean, they also had the new 3DSs doing well, or the new 2DS rather. Yeah, no, that matters. And then also, yeah, because the news we're about to say, and they also had the SNES Classic launching that month. So, yeah, they had a huge portion of the market for hardware sales last month. Now onto that 3DS thing, and this is pretty crappy. Well, it's not so much that it's crappy, but it's a sign of what's to come. Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon will be the last Pokemon games on the 3DS hardware. If that, yeah. They'll do spin-off stuff, but it'll be the last time that a legit Pokemon game will be on the system. We all know. Oh yeah, sort of like the Wii U wouldn't replace the Wii. Technically, it didn't because Just Dance 2018 just came out for it with the Switch one this year. So let me frame that for you better. The Wii had its last release around the same time as the last Wii U game. Isn't that it's kind of sad in a way. I like the Wii U. I'm sad that it did as poorly as it did at market because it's such a cool concept. I like the concept of it. Hey, that's how I bought the Dreamcast. I can't say anything. That's a perfectly acceptable way to buy a game console because then some of the games are cheap. Not the Wii U. The Wii U still some of those games are like $40. Which you ended up playing on your 3DS? Oh, you're talking about Xenoblade Chronicles X. Sorry, excuse me. What, Nintendo not being able to market their stuff? Psh, pshaw. Is a huge selling point. There's the well, the other thing with the developers is like the developers never figured out what to do with the gamepad, and that's really the biggest crime is that nobody was like, hey, here's a cool idea of thing to do with this, and a way to make this actually a legit gaming device. Ubisoft of all companies was the one to try the hardest with Zombie U, which was not an amazing game. Well, I mean, I don't know, I haven't played it yet. I finally bought it for $5. But at least they tried. I mean, I gotta give them credit for at least trying to come up with something to do with the gamepad. The thing I would have done, and I've said this in the past, and I stand by it. Not motion controls. The motion control part, not my favorite thing in the world. Nope, not at all. The thing I would have tried, very simply, I would have made a space flying type game, and I would have had some sort of instrumentation on the touchscreen, so that there's like an extra tactile aspect to the playing like a space sim. Because like, I always go back to X-Wing. How you had to like set the amount of energy you want to go to your shields and so on. I would have done something like that with it, where you can have those options that you can switch on the fly like you did back in X-Wing, so that there's something more fun to do with the game rather than just like doing it all with buttons. Because if you're going to try and do something that's a level of immersion, whenever you're flying if you're flying a jet, you do have to glance down and like hit a thing until you know exactly where it's at, and you know if you're doing that. That's the concept that should have been at the core of trying to make a Wii U game, but instead they just used it as like you said, like an inventory screen, and that's fine because that's fine. It works. It's fine. Well, exactly, but it's nothing as like basic as. Because Zelda, I'm sure, did the thing where you just tap on the screen to switch your item like you would with a button. It's just on the screen now, because that's how they did their the DS ports. And there's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just the thing I would have done would have been something that's different for the gameplay that you would get in a PS3 game. Because a PS3 games don't even have that option. You're still going to be doing it with buttons. And it's something that on a computer game you have to do it on the keyboard. This is... it's closing the gap between the what you're doing in the game and what you're doing with the controller itself, and that's also what some other companies try to do with like, oh, you use the screen to do the keypad on the security door. Except that's not something that's close to your hands in the reality of the game. Whenever you got the gun in your hand, because if you're talking about I'm getting really weird in how I'm describing this in terms of but like if you're thinking about how your right hand in playing a game is holding a gun because you're pulling the trigger on the gun with your right hand on your R button, that gun never really left your hand and it's still like a gun and you're still like holding the butt of the gun with your left hand, and then like magically you're touching buttons on this keypad. It's just a weird there's a weird gap there for me mentally, but then again, I also am trying to understand how Nintendo wanted you to think about the Wii U gamepad, yet nobody ever did. But then again, they never made that silly golf minigame thing that they showed in the original teaser video for the Wii U, so joke's on them. And then, like, swinging over it. They never did that, so I don't want to hear anything out of them. That said, I'm very happy that the Switch is doing as well as it is, because the Switch is actually a very cool piece of hardware, and it's got some new game. We got some new game news for it, such as that limited run. I'm sure Brandon's wallet was cringing a little bit whenever this news came out. Really? Because it. And one of those, Nintendo's already putting it out, which is on Super Clips. And that's not even an indie. Which I totally want to buy that whenever it hits the Switch. Whenever it hits a physical release. I think it's a cool looking game. So yeah, I'd have to actually like dig through the list and see what games are exclusive to it, but at the same time, I think there's enough there that would catch my attention, especially Golf Story. Golf Story is a game that I would own a lot faster if it got a physical release, in all honesty. Because I have an issue with paying $20 for a file. And that's why I don't have two of the digital games that came out this year that I really want to play, Last Day of June and Cuphead. Is that they're files and not a disc, and I'm not getting anything from that $20 other than the file. Yeah, I can see that. Although I imagine that it's going to be like Ori and the Blind Forest, and it'll get a physical release someday, so that they can increase visibility and increase sales. But controversy alone has been selling Cuphead just fine. I don't know any Xbox owner that does not have a copy of it. But I don't know many Xbox One owners because nobody bought the damn thing. Also, Siberia 1 and 2 are getting digital releases here in the States before Siberia 3 finally comes out. And on top of that, we're getting Europe's getting a physical release of Siberia 1, which I won't lie has hit my my desire to import another game, which is really stupid because I have Siberia 1 on the DS and I've never beaten it, so I have a hard time legitimizing that decision. You don't have the DS version? You have the Xbox version, right? Oh, it doesn't? Lame! Lame, Microsoft! Yeah, it's worth it because the import price isn't that crazy. And that's one of the things that I've actually really enjoyed about the Switch is the fact that it has that it's completely region free, and you can import those games that are still in English. You hear that, Square? You should put out a digital release of Seiken Densetsu here in the States so I can import that, you jerks. Oh, I hate them for not bringing that here. It'd be so easy. Just download the translation patch off the internet. Just use that. Take the guy's name off of it. I'm sure he won't mind. Because it'll finally be localized after, what, 24 years or whatever. Oh. But yeah, it's been a good week for Nintendo news-wise. Been a very good week for them. Now, before we get into this next section, those of you with sensitive ears, you may want to defend yourselves from this next moment because there's gonna be some crankiness. I'm sure everybody who gives a single damn about video games knows by now that Electronic Arts, the absolute filth of the gaming industry, the destroyer of studios, the people who killed Origin, Westwood, Maxis, Bullfrog, have added another wonderful studio to the eternal EA headstone. And that is Visceral Games. May they rest in peace, and may all those wonderful, talented people find new work in a studio that is not owned by Satan himself. Dead Space. I don't know what they made before Dead Space, but Dead Space, even though I've never played it, I know that it has enough notoriety and is good enough of a game that I can consciously say I know that Visceral was a good studio before EA turned them into a microtransaction machine. Yeah, about that. Okay, that's better. And you know what? To be fair, Agent Under Fire is not that bad. It's just really goofy. It's also really goofy. I don't own a copy. If I ever own a copy, I will stream it on the show. Because it's not 007 Legends. Which was... Really? I love the Third Age. It was like the worst like fan fiction of Lord of the Rings, but it was so good. It was like Final Fantasy X with Lord of the Rings fan fiction in the writing. I had so much fun with that game. It was so good. Now I'm even madder that they're gone. Okay, whatever. I never played the Godfather games, but the fact that they made Dead Spaces, that's the thing they're most known for, in all honesty. And with that, we should, you know, that's the thing. And even that got ruined before they got shuttered. With the incredibly terrible Dead Space 3, not even being a horror game anymore, but a really bad third-person shooter slash vehicle for microtransaction garbage. So, now... The tragedy of this extends to the fact that they were working on a fantastic... It would have been fantastic because it would have been a fantastic Star Wars game because it was coming from Amy Hennig, who was the creative director on the first 3 Uncharted games. And for whatever you may think of the actual game Uncharted, it's very good. They're very good games for what they are. They're very good third-person shooters with excellent scripts. They're good games. So everybody, like, I can't think of any like media site that was not looking forward to this game finally getting released, because how exciting is it to get a single-player focused Star Wars game again? And now we're not getting that, and that breaks my heart because I've been wanting a good single-player Star Wars game, and the closest thing we're getting to that is Battlefront 2, which is still a friggin' multiplayer game. It's not scratched the itch that I need scratched right now, even if it does have a single-player campaign. Oh, you need me to bring out my research now because I looked this up. The thing that EA seems to be trying to angle towards is the kind of game that brings gamers back and constantly gives them something new to do with the game. You know, like Overwatch. You know, the most famous game in recent gaming years because everybody played Overwatch except for me and you and Trent. Apparently. Brandon's getting personal. Okay, here's the thing. Yes, it does seem that EA is trying to capitalize on this games as a service concept. It does seem like they're trying to get an Overwatch under the belt or an Assassin's Creed. They're trying to make a game that
they can sell microtransactions with. And what can you not sell microtransactions with? Single-player experiences that are run by people like Amy Hennig, who make total game experiences that are designed to be played and not paid extra money for after the initial $60 investment.
And let's face it, Amy Hennig's a good game designer and would not do that to her audience. And I'm pretty sure that's ultimately what happened at EA last week. They said, no, we will not allow you to put loot boxes in the single-player game like everybody else is doing. Because we want you to enjoy the game. We want the players to enjoy the game so that they continue talking about it. Because God forbid you make games.
Here's the thing. I can only think of a couple of games as service examples that are not just garbage. Witcher 3 gave you content for free. The only thing it made you pay for were the expansions, which were longer than most games that come out nowadays. Dead serious. I played the first expansion, Hearts of Stone, for 15 hours. That is longer than most games that come out now. I still haven't finished Blood and Wine yet, but that's my fault. Nothing against them. It's supposed to be as long as The Witcher 2, which is a huge game. And the other one is the 2 Splatoon games. Splatoon being a game where it gives you new weapons and costumes and levels for free. For free. After you pay that $60 price. Game modes for free. $60, nothing else. No DLC that you pay for. That is games as a service. That is selling people a service and then giving them things for it. And you know what? The fact that Nintendo, the company that cannot get online gaming even close to right half the time, understands games as a service better than EA and Ubisoft and Activision is fucking appalling. How is it that Nintendo gets this right and no one else can even come close to mark? And they've been the ones who have created this online-focused gaming culture over the past 10 years of game design. How is that? How is it that happened? Yep. Yeah, and Nintendo put out a ton of games during the Wii U's lifespan. It's the third parties that didn't support it. Konami, but that's a different story altogether. Yes, which I actually spoke to somebody this week who's been playing Shadow of War. Oh man, they said that they actually are really frustrated because they're not even halfway through the game and they're having trouble having enough orcs for their base.
which is... now you're lucky if you get what you want. And I'm not going to spend money on microtransactions, because guess what? Video games are expensive. Why do you think I'm... Well, okay, that's a bad example. I was about to say, why do you think I'm playing a game from 2000? And the answer is that I like my games from 2000. But why do you think that I buy so few modern games? It's because they're expensive. They cost $60, and they're short sometimes. Sometimes they're stupidly short. Yeah, and now they want me to spend more money to finish them? Kiss my taint. I'm not doing that. You're telling me I gotta spend another $50 to see the good ending? Mofo, I got YouTube. Bye! Yeah. Or you can do like me. Go back to a golden age whenever you buy a game and it's all on the disc. Well, you have 4 discs in this case. Which I'm on that 4th disc, so I mean, like I can see the ending in the horizon there. God, you know, that's the thing, like, we were talking about this the other night, how it's so heartbreaking to play video games now, because it didn't used to suck this much. It used to be a thing where, like, you bought a new game and it was exciting, and now you buy a new game and you wonder how they're gonna fuck you. And that's not fair. Right? Yeah, because day 1 patches still happen. Yeah, and I can't believe that that it's happened this fast. Like, we were, like, okay, so 10 years ago, it was the Wii, the 360, and the PS3. And the biggest thing we had to gripe about was the fact that the only thing the PS3 launched with that was anything worth a crap was Resistance, and it wasn't even that good. And it had the Spider-Man font on the top. That was the thing we were, like, griping about back then. Now it's like, man, they're trying to make us pay $200 for one game. And you know, Brandon, I'll be honest, like, you and I, we're the kind of people that kind of push that whole collector's item, that collector's edition market into being. But even then, collector's editions used to not suck like they do now. The big games, yeah. And even then, like... And they're like $280. Yeah. Yeah, it's absurd. The doofus and the woman. Not the two doofuses. There's a doofus and a woman. Yeah, that... Yeah, with good reason, too. With absolutely good reason. You know, and the thing is, like, I can't, like, I'm never going to pay $300 for a collector's edition of a game, because $300 is how much the system that I'm playing that game costs. No, that's a huge statue. That thing is a... You've shown me pictures, and it is glorious. And even then, so, like, $300, though, I could buy one of my, like, rare games that I want to buy that has history and is interesting and not just another open world game with combat that's ripped off from the Arkham series. Like, if I paid $500 for a game, I mean, just say, it better be Snatcher. Because Snatcher's at least interesting. At least that's a historic game, and I'll be one of the people that played this historic game now. And it's not a 30-hour boring open world title that's gonna not ever be worth anything, really. That's funny. Oh, yeah, I'm sure, because then... Yeah. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, my Sonic that I got from... that I paid for the collector's edition of, guess what? It was made of plastic, and I knew, and I didn't care, because it was like $70. 70. It was cheap, and you know what? It is exactly what I wanted it to be. It is a giant Sonic the Hedgehog standing on a Genesis that says Sega when you hit the button, and I never expected it to be made of anything really nice, and frankly I didn't care, because I just wanted a unique piece of Sega memorabilia, you know? Yeah. It didn't cost me $300 friggin' dollars. I can live with $70. I even paid no, it was actually, how much was it? It was 80, right? For the Final Fantasy 13 2 Collector's Edition. Right? It was $80? 13 2. It was $80 when it came out, right? You get a 4-disc soundtrack. I will never forget how disappointed I was whenever I got the Collector's Edition of Bioshock Infinite, and the soundtrack was a download. Yeah, and the second one's not even as good of a game. Yeah, and not... It should not be this... I know that we created... I mean, and that's... I mean, I'm admitting that I'm part of the problem to a certain degree. But at the same time, I'm not behind the things like Ubisoft does, where they make 5 editions of a game. And that's the thing that... It is so dumb. Why do they make it so hard to buy a game? You shouldn't need a guide. And this is the industry that they're trying to
forced down our throats now. Instead of just like, hey, check out this cool game. If you come and pre-order with us, you ain't got to spend $60 all at once. You can budget. That's the entire reason I pre-order, is so I can budget. Because money is a scarcity. I shouldn't have to budget for a $300 special edition so that I get all of the side quests that they shelled out of the game to make more money.
God, we sound so cynical. And that's what sucks. It sucks so much. Like, I want to enjoy video games for being video games, old and new. I shouldn't have to, like, take myself back 15 years or 17 years or whatever just to feel like video games aren't this just painfully depressing thing anymore. And I think that's part of the reason that I still, I think that's one of the reasons I put up with Nintendo's crap so much, is that, yeah, they are manipulating my my nostalgia, and they're totally selling me things that I don't technically need to buy from them, and I don't need to pay them as much money for it as I do. I should not put up with the things that I put up with Nintendo, but like, they're not as, but the way they do things is not as horrific as anybody else in the marketplace. It's not this, they're not this terrible corporation that is completely bent on milking us for every penny. Now, don't get me wrong, they've done some crap with their deal, with their, their attempts at DLC that are just disgusting. Like the most recent Fire Emblem on DS that had like a $50 season pass. Yeah, it's more expensive than the game. You better for $50. You better get 2 games since it's downloads. And you know what? For $50 and for $40, I better get a memory card to put it all on, because that's gonna be a lot of download space. Like, for all the crap that they do, I still don't feel like whenever I buy one of their games that I'm getting ripped off wholesale by the way they handle their marketing, well, not their marketing, but by the way they handle their content. When I buy a game for a Nintendo console, I have that game. I did not have to buy the season pass of The Legend of Zelda to get all the stuff that's in it, and I have 100 hours in that game. I still haven't gone to the final dungeon yet. I need to do that before next Friday. I need to have beaten one of my Switch games before that comes out. I want video games to not be depressing anymore. How dare I? What? Scalpers, man. They went to all the stores and they bought them. Yeah, they are. They literally are. Yeah. You say, and you're saying that it's Nintendo's fault? Sure, they could do better. It's still the scalpers that piss me off. You're right. Yes, they do. I almost feel like Nintendo should just sell them direct from their website. Like, I feel like it wouldn't be as much of an exploited pile of garbage as it is otherwise. It would stop being this big scalper thing, because then the scalpers would have to like order them from Nintendo, and Nintendo would stop them after one. And then Reggie would be right. Everybody could pay $80 for the system instead of $200 or whatever. What is the most anybody's getting for them? About like $150? Is it even worth it at that point to stockpile 19 of them? Because clearly yeah. That's not shocking.
Yeah, $16 over. Scalpers are... I think the scalpers are going to be stuck with them until the holidays. I do too. And that was what happened to a lot of the NES classics during the last run of those. Is after the hack came out, they were like, okay, we're going to do this. And that's a different kind of crappy to me. You researched this, didn't you?
Yeah, no. I wonder if that was intentional on Nintendo's part to keep the piracy down. Yeah, they are. They are absolutely selling illegal content. Although, did I tell you that I saw a bootleg NES Classic? A legit bootleg NES Classic at the flea market a couple weeks ago? It was a 500... It was an NES Classic type box. Like, it was designed like the NES Classic box, but it was all wrong. Like, the graphics were in the wrong spots. And, probably inside of the shell, but it wasn't. It was something that came from China, basically, and it had 500 games on it and all this stuff, and the guy was charging like $120 for it. I was like, man, at least it's obvious. At least it's like completely obvious that this is fake. Because if it had been like 30 games, this is an NES Classic, and it was a bootleg, I'd have been pissed off. But it was an obvious bootleg and a hilarious one at that. It's still pretty crappy on their part, but you know, at least it's not hurting. It's not hurting anybody who doesn't realize it's a bootleg, who would realize it's a bootleg, and if they don't realize it's a bootleg, then they're stupid. Because you need, I mean, it's obvious that that thing's a bootleg, and if you can't tell, you're not paying any attention. Oh my! I swear, I think that we need to have a week coming up soon, or maybe next week, where it is literally just not not gaming news oriented, so we can just like talk about video games and it not be depressing. That's true. It's been like sparse to completely empty lately. Oh my god. Okay, so here's some depressing retro gaming news. Rose still needs another 1,100 experience points to level up, and that's after all the grinding I've been doing since I started playing. Dart has also not leveled up. He has 2,100 experience points left. They're getting 1/8 of like 200 at most. This game has the worst case of experience points burn I have ever seen in my life. Yeah, but I still can't beat the end game. Like, the end game still is not plausible for me right now. It's terrible how poorly I've done on this game. Or at least how it... What is that? Jason Statham will gather your Pokeballs and move them. I thought I thought that was the Pokemon Bank. What's the difference? Shouldn't they be the same thing so that you don't get ripped off for all the work you've done in your game? I guess so. That's the main thing. Oh, oh, gonna make a good thing last. What have you been playing? Oh no! Brandon, haven't you told the people enough about your Magic the Gathering the past 2 days? Go ahead, man. I'm just giving you hell. You just took the dive. Thankfully, I wasn't in the room whenever this happened. Why don't you tell everybody how many boosters you've already bought, Brandon? Brandon, you've bought 19 boosters, and you've only been playing a week. I can't say anything. That's how I started as well, but I didn't expect I would. I thought about buying one. I was going to buy one starter deck whenever I started. No, I was going to buy two. One for Joe, one for me. But then, like, her mom helped pay for it, too, because this was right before we took the plane back to Louisiana when we went up there and visited them. And Kitty had just taught us both how to play. So Joe was like, all right. Well, I was like, you know, I'll buy a deck starter, or I'll buy a deck builder kit, or I'll just buy a starter deck. I already got one of those. I didn't have to buy that. No, I was like, I'll buy a starter deck, or I'll buy the deck builder toolkit. One of the two. And then Joe's like, well, we're going to do this. We should buy a little bit of stuff. So then she just kept adding stuff to the cart, and her mom paid for half of it. So we ended up with a fat pack, a deck builder toolkit, like 3 starter decks. And then when we were waiting to board the plane, we opened all of it. And it took like 20 minutes to open and look through, like just glance at it all. And that was both of us going the whole on that. It was really fun, and I bought a couple more fat packs over time. Actually, I didn't buy a fat pack that day. I bought starter decks and stuff like that. No, maybe I did. That's the new version of starter decks. Because starter decks used to be just like it came with a like a foil rare card, and then they changed it to the Planeswalker thing. It seems like. But it's the same kind of concept. You still get a 60 card deck and 2 boosters and the very nice card. So then, like, the other day I was like, you know, I wouldn't mind buying one of these new starter decks so that I have some modern cards to play against Brandon. But then I was like, I don't need to do this to myself again because I'll just spend a fortune on this. I need to make my own card game, damn it. Yeah. Yeah, we've just been criticizing microtransactions, but I mean, the thing is, the difference again, like I said last week, because we talked about this on the last podcast, is that the difference for me is that I get something for my money, I have something physical and tangible, and I can use those cards. They're still good cards in the interim, you know, they're not like garbage cards, every one of them, at least most part. There are a few cards in Magic that I think are just genuinely useless, but I've gotten very few of those. Everything has a purpose in that game. And I can have up to 4 in my deck at any given time whenever I'm building a deck for tournament play if I decide to do tournament play, which I've done once and got stomped. Oh, but yeah, and I enjoy Magic, and I'm making a card game. Woohoo! I've been working very hard on it.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. You beat it once. How does what is a control deck? Is that a blue deck? Yeah, same here. That's all I want to do when I'm playing Magic. The only reason I got into tournament play was because it was a fun way. It was a way to play other players, and then I realized that most of the players I was playing against were assholes. Actually, in all fairness, I did play with 2 people who were pretty cool. The first guy I played in the actual tournament, really nice guy. He's like, yeah, I've just been buying cards. I'm spending way too much money on it, but I've been having a good time with it. I get to come up here and hang out and eat pizza and play Magic. It's great. And it's like, yeah, this guy's pretty cool. He was kind of a dude, bro, but he was a nice guy. And then the second guy I played against was the Matt Smith lookalike, and he was a complete tosser. But then I played against the third guy who was pretty cool, and he's the guy I won one hand against because I got really lucky. He had a green deck, and it was very good. And I was using my white and blue deck that sucked. And the only reason I won was because I got Elspeth out there, and I built up so many soldier tokens that I had a guy standing behind me adding dice to my table. So that I had enough soldier tokens. It is. Well, I mean, to be fair, I had a guy who showed me how that worked earlier that day, because he had a white-blue deck with Jace and Elspeth, and that was in Theros, so Jace was a complete douchebag. He was actually a really useful card in that game. I believe it. Yeah, literally. Oh. This game is so nerdy to talk about in conversation. I don't know if you saw it, but there's a meme. I don't remember if I shared it, but it's how I think I look when I'm discussing board games. And it's like civilized conversation, how I actually look, and it's like a crazy person with a conspiracy map hanging on the wall behind him. It's absolutely perfect for how I feel about discussing these games, especially my own game, which I told Sean today that I need help figuring out a name for it after we were talking about the lore a little bit, and anytime I talk to people about the card game and describe what you do and how you go about doing it, and if they don't play these games, they look at me like I've lost my fucking mind. Oh, But that game is coming along. If you are watching this podcast, keep in mind that sometime in probably how many months do you think it'll take us to get ready for a Kickstarter, Brandon? Some months. Man, that's optimistic. I like your optimism. So in 2018, we're going to be launching a Kickstarter for a card game. It's going to be a sci-fi space battle card game. And it is Brandon. What do you think of it? You played it. You haven't. You did not design anything about the first round of the game. You're working on the second round of the game with me. What did you think of it? And Brandon is not going to lie about this because I expected him to rip it apart and be like, okay, this is what's wrong, and I don't like this. You did ask a lot of questions, and the fact that I got through a game against you, and without you saying this is garbage, it made me feel a whole lot better about what I was doing. So, yeah, look for that in 2018. It's going to be really awesome. I think so, anyway. I'm a little bit biased, I won't lie. Do we have anything else to add before we close on the gaming discussion for this week? Alright, well, if you enjoy our show, please go to our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter and give us a follow, like, whatever you want to call it. It's at ZTriggerLive. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe, or like, or do whatever, because that's what you do here on the YouTube to make YouTube people get things done. And that's really interesting and exciting for us because, we don't have enough people to make money off of our content, but we keep making it anyway. Also, come back next week for yet another Z-Trigger podcast recording. Next week we're going to be doing some Mario Odyssey, like I said, so that Nintendo can flag it and make money off of our work. And, yes, once again, thank you all for watching/listening. We really love our listeners, and we want to hear from you. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye, and if you're watching on YouTube, stick around. Bye-bye. Alright, I think we're going to do a book review show now. Everybody's got a book to talk about, right? You don't have a book to talk about. How are we going to continue going? Did you not finish Metal Gear Worlds of Power? How far did you get? Oh my god. That is really bad. Well, guys, well, let's get to it, cause I'm ready to get on with this, cause I have a book I gotta discuss. Ring a ding on dong. Yes. Oh. Well, you can go last while you recuperate. How's that sound? Alright. Or, that's not even the right word. Gather your thoughts, sir. Brandon, you want to go first, or should I? Just so we know when we get to recording. Okay, that's cool, man. All right. Then I'll get the show started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Z-Trigger Expanded Universe podcast. My name is William Hill. And we are going to tell you all about some lovely literature this week. How are you guys doing tonight? The plague. I think you just could have stopped it. I'm getting over the fuck you. Oh, well, before we get into the reviews, what's everybody reading right now? How many you got left? Oh, you were about to say that. Yeah, the one he wrote with his son. Oh yeah, it's a tome. That's doable. Oh, that may not be doable as much. Whew. Good luck there. Yeah, seriously. How about you, Brandon? What have you been reading? Comedy answer first? No, then don't. Then don't. If this is a surprise, it should be because, man, that's a thing you've been reading. That sucks, man. I kind of know what you're doing. I kind of know where you're at with that, though. So I'm only reading one book, and that book is Annihilation, which is by Jeff Vandermeer. This was a pretty big deal a couple years ago when it came out. It's the first book in the Southern Ridge trilogy, and it is also being adapted into a film. Well, it's been adapted into a film. It's coming out next year. It's from the writer and director of Ex Machina, which I love that movie, so I'm really looking forward to the adaptation. And the day after we saw the trailer the first time, after we saw Kingsman, because we got much better trailers with Kingsman than we did Blade Runner somehow, we went to a new bookstore here in town called Page 158 Books, which is in Wake Forest, North Carolina. If you're listening to this and you're in Raleigh, go check out Page 158 Books. They're a really cool little shop. They had all three books, and Joe saw it and was like, and she was like, we have to buy one book today. I know we can't really afford it, but we're in a new bookstore. We have to buy one book. I'm like, all right, I can do that. And so I looked around for probably 25 minutes, and the store was really nice. I saw like 8 books I wanted to buy. But I chose this one because with the movie coming out, I need to finally fulfill the promise to myself that I'd read this book after our buddy Sean recommended it several years ago. I cannot wait to review this book. Our favorite listener, Kitty, she's going to, I don't know if she's read this book or not, but I can't wait to give my golden recommendation of this book because it's a book she will love, I think, because of how much she likes Lovecraft. And this is, to me, what I wish Lovecraft did, because it's Lovecraft's style of unnerving dread, but not boring as piss. Sorry, I don't like Lovecraft's writing. I tried, though. I really did try. But anyway, yeah, Annihilation. Can't wait to review it next week. Once I've finished it, I still have about 60 pages because I've been staying up way too late playing video games this week to finish it. But I'm going to finish it. And then I'm going to be reading probably Anne Leckie's new novel, or I'm going to put it off and like have it as that gorgeous cherry on top of my reading Sunday. After reading, I've got a book that I'm really looking forward to reading called My Best Friend's Exorcism. And I really want to read that book. It looks amazing in a very goofy, like comedy kind of way. Have you heard about that one, Trent, by any chance? It's kind of a like comedic riff on 1980s exploitation horror, and it's and the book cover is actually stylized after an old VHS box that came from a rental store and is really beat up. It's awesome. And the back cover, instead of having an illustration, it's got like screenshots out of a bad 80s horror movie. The cover alone sold me, and the fact that the author wrote a nonfiction book about 80s horror makes me very excited to read it. It looks cool. So yeah, I'm reading Annihilation. I'll talk about it more next time. Brandon, I think, is going to be reviewing the first book tonight, though. Yes, he's going to review the Bible. Good luck not pissing off the conservatives with this one. That was a very good way to say that without angering the conservatives. Because it... Oh man, this is pulling a Lucas. Sorry. Can't help it. I know what that's like. I know what that's like way too much. Well, you're getting tested on that with Rothfuss, because wow. Jesus. Pointed. I think I have another. Get fucked by the dicks. Not quite as rousing as the speech of the as that scene from Team America though. I'm a little disappointed. If you had remembered that entire bit, having only seen that movie once, that would have been a very impressive quote just now. I can't either, but it is like the best part of that movie to me. Elves. Yeah. Ah! That's the worst. That's my river. You cannot cross that river. One question I have for you, Brandon. Does this book fit the "there's always an empire" rule? That in everything fantasy or science fiction, there's an empire, and it's usually terrible. Or is the empire a benevolent one?
That's still not as bad as the invention of blue jeans in Briscoe County Jr. Thanks for the donuts, Duncan. I love that show. I love that show so much. It's so goofy. It's so great. I love it. I hate that it only got a season. Oh my god, no, really? To be fair, I had the same feeling. I did read The Hunger Games because it came with my Nook, and I was like, the movie's coming out. The movie doesn't look terrible. And then I started reading the movie. I was like, shit, it's that kind of book. Oh, it's not as bad as it can be, but like it was so distracting because it's like, hey, we have this book and serious things are happening, but I got 2 boyfriends. Yep. Oh yeah, as always. No. No. Well. Trying to tie this week's shows together.
and that it has characters that are supposed to be reflective of human beings that have things that go on in their lives other than in their pants. It's quite the rant and review, because it was definitely both. Alright, so I'm going to jump in here. I've got a book to review. It's one I've been looking forward to reviewing for a couple weeks now. This book is called Everything Unusual. It's by Nicholas Karatu. And, Karatu, yes. And full disclosure, because we do disclosures here, because we are professionals and we disclose the source of our books. First and foremost, I know Nick. I worked with him when I was living in Winston-Salem, and I was there whenever he was writing the earliest parts of this book, and he sent me a copy of this book after it was released. It is I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if at this point if it is considered self-published or if it is handled by the publisher that he told me at one point that he was working with, which was World Castle. I didn't ask. I didn't think it relevant. But I just wanted to clarify that, yes, he did send me this book, and I told him that I was also going to review it on the show, because Nick's a great guy, and honestly, Nick's actually a very good author. Nick's a very good writer, and he told me the goals he had in mind for this book, and I'm going to be discussing this book now, which is called Everything Unusual. It is about this kid named Elliot Winter, and the fact that Elliot's kind of got some... he has a very peculiar set of abilities. Also, his mother is a complete psychopath and hates him because he looks too much like his alcoholic father, Sam. Marilyn is a complete psychopath. I understand why Sam drinks. So he starts seeing a psychiatrist, Dr. Escherman. And Dr. Escherman is interested in Elliot, but not for the... not for the usual reasons. He understands Elliot's powers a little bit better than Elliot does. I'm going to gloss over a lot of this book because there's a lot that goes on in the first half of this book that it is set up for what happens later, but at the same time, a lot of things go quiet in the second half of this book whenever Elliot goes to basically another. Well, I say world, but it's still Earth, but it's very surreal. Shit gets surreal in the second half of this book. Whenever Elliot goes to a new town where Marilyn and Sam are completely normal and happily married and totally his parents now, rather than two people that bat him around like a piece of garbage. And he's going to school with people who say things that are very unusual and talk about things that are not exactly normal happening, and other things that are very strange happen with the other students. This is not a very long book. It clocks in at about 250 pages. and I don't want to reveal what goes on here. I just want to give a bit of a color of the plot. It is... You could technically call this book young adult fiction, and I don't mean that in the modern sense. It's not modern in the sense that Elliot's this chosen one, and we're going to all rally around him as he fights the evil thing. Because it's not really that kind of story. This is more in the sense of, like, The Giver is young adult fiction. I mean, and I know that I just called out the whole chosen one thing, and that's kind of a trope that's in The Giver. But the language that's on display and the way that Nick writes is more of classic fiction. Like, the way he actually writes a sentence and the way he sets a scene is... And I don't mean this in a negative way. Please understand that I mean this in the most positive way possible. This book reads like it was written 40 years ago. And I mean that in the way that it colors the scene with very long descriptions of setting and scene. And it paints a more beautiful picture on the page than I'm used to from the young adult genre. And that is excellent. And that is definitely the strongest point of this book. At times, I will admit that there's a bit of a word economy issue going on as a result of trying to paint the scene that way. And it's that there are wasted words, where 3 words were used where 1 would do. And that's something that I would notice, you know, being a writer myself. And I would notice that there's just too many words on the page describing something. And not in the sense that the description is not good, that, again, 3 words where 1 would do would have kept the same exact feel intact, but instead we just have a little bit too much. But it doesn't. It's not a make or break thing. It's an issue where a little bit more editing could have made the book stronger. But the narrative and the flow of the narrative actually kept me going. It's a slower burn than most books of the genre of the YA genre specifically, or most fiction nowadays. Anyway, I don't know if you guys notice it as much, but most fiction from new authors kind of like hits the ground running and goes hard and burns right to the end. But not this book. This book takes its time to do everything that it does and really set up the type of story that it is. And I have a very hard time describing exactly what's going on the page because, and this is the book's biggest problem, is that it didn't end. This book did not end. It does not have an ending. And I did ask Nick, and he's going to be working on a follow-up to continue the story. The book has something relative to a climax. So it does follow something relative to a 3-act structure, but with the book being divided into 2 parts, very specifically part 1 and part 2 in the book, there are things that happen in the first half of this book that are really intriguing, and I want to understand what the implications of those events are. Dr. Eshelman disappears after about page 98. But whenever you go into the second part of this book, you don't see any of those characters again except for one of them, and she comes in later, like about halfway through the second part, and is a player in the plot again. And by the time that she becomes an element in what the third act is and how this book ends, it's so unusual and so it's strange, and I love the surrealism on display. But then it gets to that final scene, and it has a scene break and one line for the outro for the denouement, and it just ends. And I won't lie, it frustrated the ever-loving hell out of me that I didn't get a resolution for the majority of what took place in the book. But the good part about this, and I want to kind of go on the fact that I enjoyed the book so much is why it frustrated me. If I hadn't liked the rest of the book, it wouldn't be that big of a deal that I didn't get an ending. It would have been another black mark against the book. Instead, it's a very interesting story that based on the first 20 pages, I could have seen this book frustrating most people, because Marilyn is Marilyn is almost like stereotype horrible as a parent, and how abusive she is. She's almost like a cliche of an abusive parent, but the dichotomy that's created between her and perfect Marilyn in part 2 is it makes for a fascinating. This whole book, just everything that happens in between these two sections makes for a fascinating read. But I'm angry that I don't have the ending. I wish that this was the whole book right now, rather than what I have. So I'm gonna give the quick rating on this. Whenever I brought this one over to Goodreads, I gave it a 4 out of 5, very specifically because the ending frustrates me, and I want more. I want that resolution that's going to be there, because I know that whenever the book ended, that Elliot's in another world than where the second one ends, or than where the second one took place, and I want to know what's there, because to give you a good idea, and this is sort of spoiler territory, and I apologize. Dr. Escherman directly references Lovecraft, and that means that there's something. I know that has to mean that there's something more sinister, kind of like hanging over the narrative that's in play. The authority that's mentioned in part 2 is an allusion to that, but I don't think that they are the architects of all of the darkness that has to be taking place in this book. I could be wrong, and if I am, that's fine, because they were ominous enough. But I need more. I need more of this book, and the fact that I don't have it already is a bit of a downer on the overall execution of the book. That, and if anything that Nick should take into writing the next one, it's a bit of a cleaner edit, which is typical of first time writing or first time author and more so self-published books, and it's something that can be easily overlooked. Something that I'm going to look at more strongly, because it's going to irk me more than it will everyone else, because some of those edits most people aren't going to notice. So don't let that aspect of my criticism be weighed too heavily. It's an excellent book, and if you're looking for something that can appeal to more people than some of the fare I've been reading lately, like this is no Bunny Monroe or anything. This is a great book overall, and I want people to read it. Go and read Nick's book, because Nick's a hell of an author, and I think he deserves the readers. Trent, I think you're up at bat. All roads lead to Shannon. Huh, okay.
Yes! Gus! Yes! Gus! Gus! Yes! Gus! Yes! Yes! Gus!
I've read a few of those in the past couple of years. I know exactly what you mean. I think the one I had like that this year was Power Set. That was a book that I didn't hate. I didn't particularly like it, though. I still need to continue the Grand Tour novels and see if I can get into them any more than I did.
Yes.
I've been lucky not to have that too much lately. I've read very good books the past few books. I had some issues with that without getting into spoilers. I didn't want to spoil everything unusual. Although I did want to say that, and this is just a little bit of background. Nick, if you do listen to this podcast at any point, I like the old title better, which was Kingdom of Leaves. I like that one more. It's a cool title. Probably has been used on another book, but I like Kingdom of Leaves more, personally. But that is neither here nor there, obviously. Alright, well, is that it for this week's installment? Well, technically that's Dorian, and that's part of the reason I've had to silence my swearing a little bit tonight. But he's been unconscious for about an hour now. He's asleep in the recliner. Alright, well, thanks everybody for listening, and if you enjoy what we do, follow us here on YouTube or on Facebook/Twitter at ZTriggerLive. We hope you will join us next week and in 2 weeks from now when we reconvene on the Expanding Universe show. We got to get that next Star Wars book in us, guys.
Yes.
Me too, and I don't have my place to buy books around here anymore other than Barnes Noble. I don't think I'm going to find it used. I'm going to have to buy it new, which sucks, because... Well, actually, I'm sort of looking forward to it after playing 2 games written by the guy who wrote it. Drew Karpyshyn wrote the first 2 Mass Effects, so... I'm hoping it'll be pretty good. Maybe it'll be bad, who knows, we'll see. But... Geez, seriously. There are good Star Wars books. We gotta get to them at some point. Alright, but yes, that'll be it for this week, and we'll see everybody next week. Good night. Alright. Oh my lord, I am tired, and all I've been doing in this game is grinding and practicing my attacks. That's very true, but we're a long ways away from that. Yeah. But at least some of the dialogue is different than the movie. I've actually read the novelization a long time ago. You know, I imagine that if I was good at nailing these the additions every time, as opposed to 1 out of every 100 attempts, I would be able to like walk through every boss in this game. Because like my characters can do like 700 to 900 HP damage. And the thing I'm guessing the final boss is only got 12,000 HP. Relatively speaking, that's not that much. But you have to be good at the stupid timed button presses. Which are... It's like I've nailed the addition for Dart like 3 times the entire time we've been doing podcasts tonight. It's really crappy. Ooh. Revan from the Old Republic. It's because nobody bought them. Except for massive Star Wars nerds like me.
who are trying to buy all of them. But then again, I didn't buy it new. I'm trying to get it used. Or play the role. Yeah. That's the other one. But even then, like, most people don't play media tie-in games like that. I mean, the ones that tie up the games like that, because the one's going to be even harder to find used is Star Wars Galaxies Ruins of Dantooine. Well, there was a reason there was only one of those. Yeah, it's a very unappealing book. All right. Oh shit! I hit the wrong button. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna beat this game, guys. It's part of my attempt to. Yeah, determination can't get you over skill. And that might be helpful, actually. It might actually be helpful. There's only 5 bosses left in the whole game. Oh, damn it, that's Oh my. Lord and me. Dart has still not leveled up the entire time I've been playing. And I've been playing this game for 2.5 hours. I still need 363 experience points to level him up. My god, there's people shooting at me in this area. I'm not even in battle and I'm getting shot at. Oh, Valley of Corrupted Gravity. This is where one of the supposed best things to grind on is. Huh. Oh, wait a minute. There's actually more. Oh, this is a. I was wrong. This is a alphabetized list of bosses. I was wondering how to best approach the rest of this game, seeing as I haven't played it in literal decades, or literally over a decade. Shit, they're all alphabetized. What good is that? Oh my. Anyway, guys, I cannot imagine you want to sit here and watch me grind anymore. That includes YouTube, you people, if there are any of you left. Alright, I'm going to turn off the stream. Thanks for anybody for watching. Good night.